Nowadays, in the mindfulness movement, you've probably heard of it, people, different courses that are given, also for corporations and military and hospitals, and they're big for rehabilitation of people, and supposedly, great
sports too, though.
Sports, yeah. Well, I'm sure that's multi-million-dollar for consultancy on mindfulness meditation. But most of them discard the most important parts of the Buddhist path, which are the ethics and morality. His Holiness mentions in the commentary, if you get a chance to read, if you haven't already read, that in a certain sense, because those are privations, giving up your lust and giving up your anger and so forth, and there are some things that are a little more uncomfortable, but they mimic, in a sense, the great asceticism that the Buddha underwent, even though an enlightened being, showing the aspect of that, leaving the temple of all the great luxuries, living with us, in ascetic conditions for a long time, but especially the 12 years in very strict ascetic behavior. And His Holiness says, how can we expect to make real spiritual development by not being able to bear with some kind of suffering like that? Nowadays, what we have to bear with is minuscule. So he says that this movement is well, for so many reasons, so many other reasons, also discarding ethics as one of the fundamental trainings. We know what the three fundamental trainings are in Buddhism. What are the three higher trainings? Do you know? Sila, Shila.
Moral discipline, renunciation.
That's Shila, yeah. Then?
Renunciation?
No.
Oh, concentration.
Concentration.
And wisdom.
Wisdom, right? We say the three higher trainings. So the meditative, this so-called mindfulness, maybe seems like kind of mostly concentration, but even then it's of a variety that's just touching the surface. Really doesn't talk so much about wisdom, although in so-called Theravada practitioners they're talking a bit more about wisdom. But there's not much emphasis on ethics, but that really acts as the foundation for success in concentration. Lama Yeshe told us that there are many people who want to develop single-pointed concentration. Some people would come to the east, to the monastery or something, and want to develop samadhi, single-pointed concentration, shamatha, whatever, but they don't know the essential ingredient, the essential basis for that, which is the observance of pure morality. What that means, it doesn't mean just like observing, good morality, oh, that's good. It means you yourself observing your own mind, watching your own mind, and avoiding negative actions. When delusions arise, applying the antidotes immediately, and then collecting virtuous dharma, as we say, creating virtuous karma, also teachings, understandings, and abilities that allow you to help other people. So don't feel when you encounter these kind of things today that there's something we're missing in the Tibetan tradition. You might think, oh, we don't do these so much, these mindfulness of the breathing and the walking, and there must be something profound because these professors are saying it's so good and everything. I asked Song Rinpoche, the great Song Rinpoche, someone who said, Jeff, you were asking me if I had much to do with Song Rinpoche's reincarnation and so forth. Song Rinpoche, previous Lama, great tantric practitioner, guru of both Lama Yeshe and Lama Sopa Rinpoche. Had a little goatee, not as big as yours. You remember?
But he was the inspiration.
Was he? Okay. Then that's okay. I asked Song Rinpoche once, I just had a little personal interview, I said, why don't we have this kind of, shamatha meditation courses, with so-called shamatha. Shamatha is more specific here in the Tibetan tradition, more precise and exacting than in what is meant in the Theravada tradition. Why don't we have that, watching the breathing, mindfulness of the breathing, mindfulness of walking, mindfulness of... So Rinpoche was, I think he had just taken out his teeth. He had to put his teeth back in first. And he said, through the translator, I understood. I didn't understand enough Tibetan to understand exactly what he said, but that the object of mindfulness in the Mahayana is not the main object of mindfulness. Certainly we always practice, we always revere and practice and revere these basic teachings, of mindfulness of the body, what's it called, four close placements of mindfulness and so forth. But he said the main object of mindfulness in the Mahayana is not those, it's on the mind training. It's always being mindful of the precepts of mind training. For instance, in a nutshell, always to be able to see everything as opportunities to enhance your development of conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, which means the wisdom that realizes emptiness held by conventional bodhicitta. Within the mind stream of someone who has bodhicitta, their realization of emptiness is called ultimate bodhicitta. In the mind of someone who has not realized, who has not developed bodhicitta, their realization of emptiness is called realization of emptiness. It's not called ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta because it's held in the basis, like the discipline that holds that. So, there are many different things that you can emphasize at different times. Be mindful. When you walk up steps, to think, or walk down steps, think, like this, may I be willing to even demean myself, go into the lower realms to benefit sentient beings. Like this, walking down, to accept the defeat, and whatever especially when you're cleaning, when you're washing pots. If you're at Jeff's house and washing the stove or the pots or something like that, think, like this, may I clean out all of the defilements from the minds of all sentient beings, just like this. And as you're cleaning, at Jeff's house takes several hours to get to that point where you start to see the aluminum or the stainless steel underneath it. But
it needs you again.
I heard. Yeah. So, but as you do that, because it's something that you can visually see as you're cleaning like that, it leaves an imprint in the mind. Yeah, the delusions are also impermanent. They're not the very nature of the mind. They're like these stains in the pan, the crust in the side. They can be removed. And in doing that with the bodhicitta motivation, creates immense karma. Probably, maybe more than many Theravada practitioners. Maybe that one cleaning session creates more merit than many practitioners create in their whole life without encountering bodhicitta. Lama Yeshe told us after coming, the first time he came to the West here, this is when I went to the 7th course, I think he was coming back from the first time, or maybe it was the second time in the West, and he said the former student who had come to Kopan course and gone back to the West that he revisited when he came over here, the one that impressed him the most about the progress was a young fellow who had been working in a grocery store, placing the cans, you would think, totally, how could that benefit many? And he said, because he practiced the mind training, he said, like this, may I put the applesauce of realization in the minds of, and cleaning, when he cleaned up, may I clean the minds of all sentient beings, created so much merit, So that is the main, from the Mahayana point of view, this is what Swami Rinpoche said, although it does revere these more elementary practices, which might seem more sophisticated because you're sitting and you're watching your breathing and everything, the mindfulness of the two bodhicittas. Conventional bodhicitta, which means, on the basis of loving compassion, wishing for people to be free of suffering, to aim for enlightenment. Remember these two words, bodhisattva, mahasattva. Bodhi, aiming for enlightenment, that's one part of bodhicitta. The other, mahasattva, emphasizing working for the welfare of sentient beings. So, let's continue with our Heart Sutra talk here. In the next to last paragraph on the first page here, Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the wisdom gone beyond, the mind without obscuration and without fear. So what does that mean, first of all? Because there is no attainment. Remember we said in the previous paragraph, we said there is no attainment, no non-attainment, no gnosis, no attainment, no non-attainment. So what does that mean? Remember, does it mean there's no attainment at all? There's no way of achieving anything? That's what bodhisattvas are to think? No, it means that not to get caught up with, there is some attainments, but I can't do that. That's sort of like inherently existing, it's separated from me. With the understanding of emptiness, there's understanding that the fact that there are no inherently existent attainments, or no attainment within emptiness, means that they can be attained. So, because there is no attainment, they know they can achieve it. The bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. Because that's the way to bring about attainments. With that understanding, that fluidity, the things that seemed previously unattainable, I can't give that up, I can't do that, I can't devote my life to this or that. They dwell in, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration and without fear. So even the obscurations that we have, like say you have great attachment, or what's the word? What is it for alcohol?
Addiction?
Addiction. You have sort of like addiction. You're addicted to drugs or beer or sex or love. Addicted to love. Should we copyright that? That sounds like a good sound.
There was a song.
Was a song? Addicted to love?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm too late. See that?
It's in a movie with Tom Cruise and...
Oh, he knows that. Oh, you already knew that. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't know that, no.
Robert Palmer.
Oh, that's right.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Robert Palmer, okay. I'll have to look it up. So anyway, shucks. And when I had the brainstorm for something called ketchup, someone told me it already exists. So no, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm too little too late. So the obscurations in our mind that we notice, our addictions, our lusts, our anger, our laziness, our low self-esteem, the grudges that we hold that are obscurations to making realizations we can't get rid of, they're just still in our mind. Within the practice of the perfection of wisdom, meditating on emptiness, that there is no inherently existent self, and extending that to no inherently existent others, the objects of your attachment, lust, or hatred, or grudge, or whatever, no self-existent, inherently existent actions, humiliation, whatever, you imagine. Understanding them to be empty, you can transcend them. So different ways of dealing with the delusions. In other courses, we would explain about the various particular antidotes. Each like attachment has its own way of, the skillful being has their own way of applying particular antidotes to attachment. They have particular methods as antidotes to anger and hostility, and jealousy, pride, low self-esteem, and so forth. They all have particular antidotes, but all of them share something in common. They all have a general antidote which works for all of them. You know what that is?
Emptiness.
Seeing emptiness.
Meditation on emptiness, not emptiness itself. Remember I said Lama Yeshe was a joke, he said emptiness, not special. Even Kaka has emptiness, it has emptiness as its nature, right? What's really special and rare is the wisdom that realizes emptiness, because emptiness is right here around us now, but we don't recognize it. So, Shariputra, therefore, because there's no attainment, because there's no inherently existent attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. Realize a direct realization of emptiness, or at least in our stage, some understanding. The mind without obscuration, because of that, not only in that state are the obscurations subdued, but if you enter into that meditation, having first recognized the obscurations in your mind, the delusions, let's say. Two main obscurations are what? Do you know? What we call the two general categories of obscuration.
Anger and attachment.
What we call the deluded obscurations, the nunya klesha avarana, which means the delusions.
Emotions.
You could call them emotions, yeah. And what's the other one called? The obscurations to omniscience, in Tibetan called shedim. The subtle obscurations that even on the Arya path, that prevent you from seeing the two truths simultaneously, that cause the appearance of inherent existence, many other things, subtlemost obscurations that only the bodhisattvas eliminate. The Hinayana arhats have no way of eliminating them. They are eliminated by a combination of bodhicitta and wisdom of emptiness. So in that state of realization of emptiness, all of these obscurations don't appear, for one thing, so you're very calm. But if say you have a problem with attachment, or you regret, or grudge that you've held for a long time, or some longing that's still in your mind, your baby left you and you still remember. Yeah, my baby done left me. I'm sure that's... By using meditation on emptiness as an antidote, those obscurations, you can be eroding them more directly, sort of that general antidote to the delusions. There was no person who was fond of, that guy or girl, the person that I thought of myself at the time, that I even remember, my heart was broken or something like that. There was no person who actually got angry at these other people for doing something, and shouted at them and created so much chaos. There was a conventionally existent I at the time, the continuity of my previous, either this life or previous lives, but not the way that my mind was holding at the time, which gave rise to those delusions. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had, if I had realized the self didn't exist inherently at that time, those delusions would not have arisen. So you can understand that way. The mind without obscuration and without fear. The greatest antidote to fear is said to be the meditation on emptiness. Gomshin Kapala, did I tell you this story before? Gomshin? Actually, he was advised by Lama Yeshe once to be his attendant to, or visit or something. No? Harry was, but I thought you had told me you didn't know. So Gomshin was this old Lama, even back in the 70s, I'm sure he's passed away many decades ago, who was said to be a reincarnation of Tamtang. Tamtang? What was it? The famous Tibetan yogi who built the iron bridges made of chain, Tongtang Gyalpo, in the Kagyu, other traditions, very, very famous. And he was called Gomshen. That was the name of our dog also at Kopman. Gomshen means great meditator. Lama Yeshe used to say that this big mastiff with the people. He knew which the kids that were at the course, and if the Nepalis would try to come up at night and steal the rich Inji's radios and things, Gomshin would attack them. So Lama would say in the Gompa, you love Gomshin, I love Gomshin, Jesus loves Gomshin, everyone loves Gomshin, but there's not much we can do for Gomshin right now. He's an animal, Even we say, "Oh, Mani Beni Hung," he just looks at us and wags his tail or licks his lips or something like that, or ignores us. So anyway, this actual great meditator, Gomshin Kabbalah, was giving a talk, and he said that once when he was meditating in a cave above a valley where there was a general store for that region, small little store where you get grains and stuff, that he would go down once every 3 months or 6 months to get some provisions. So the guy knew him down there. So he's in his cave, and within the cave he was within a pup tent, just to protect from the elements. So he was meditating there, and he felt the presence of someone, maybe like the Nepali guys who came at Kobanya. He felt the presence of someone walking around his tent, maybe even saw the shadow a little bit, and he was very afraid. So he meditated on emptiness, the emptiness of the self, the emptiness of the other person, the emptiness of the fear. And because a good meditator, a good understanding of emptiness, remained in that for some time, and when he arose from that meditation, the presence was gone. And he went out and checked, he didn't see anything missing in his cave, the very bare essentials. But the next time he went down to the valley where the general store was, he mentioned this to the storekeeper. First he said that, the storekeeper said, "Oh, Gomshin, where are you doing? What are you doing these days?" He said, "I'm up in that cave up there." And the man immediately said, "Oh, did you see the Yeti?" You know what a Yeti is? Anna's in Tibet. You have to tell her later the story. Jeff, did you hear this story? No, okay. I was just teasing. The after lunch dozies. So, in real life, two main protections against fearful situations are bodhicitta, like say St. Francis of Assisi, maybe didn't have actual bodhicitta from a Buddhist perspective, but had great compassion. Animals were not as aggressive toward him. You know who I'm talking about?
Francis of Assisi.
Francis of Assisi, right? And of course the great eradicator of fear is a meditation on emptiness. So not just blank mind, but realizing there is no person. All of this is like an illusion. There is an appearance, continuity of appearances, but it doesn't exist in this findable way my mind is grasping to. Meditating and like that. Therefore, because there is no attainment, it can be attained. Bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom. The mind without obscuration, it acts as an antidote and to purify them, and during that meditative equipoise, they don't exist. And in that meditative equipoise, they have no fear, eliminate fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. So what we are right now are totally in error. Everything that we perceive is erroneous, unless you happen to be thinking about the teachings in a very authentic way. And as a result of that meditation, they reach the end point that's passed beyond sorrow. From a Mahayana point of view, generally we say you don't aim for personal nirvana, right? What do you aim for?
Enlightenment.
Bodhi, enlightenment, right? But if you talk about the 10 bodhisattva bhumis, the 10 stages of realization of the bodhisattva after having The first bhumi is when you first have a direct realization of emptiness, of the perfection of training, of the perfection of wisdom. And then second bhumi, you have and on that first bhumi, you have a special training in the perfection of generosity. Even though you've realized wisdom, but you have now that allows you to even give your body possessions like in the Jataka tales. Incredibly moving what the Buddha did so many lifetimes. When His Holiness talks about the lifetime of the Buddha, sometimes he'll stop and sometimes you can hear him sobbing. He'll take off his glasses and his eyes and all of the great lamas and hush. It's like he's remembering the Buddha, the kindness of the Buddha. Incredible, the deeds that he did in order to achieve enlightenment for us. Not so that he could just have, this grand bliss and ability and so forth, but out of compassion for sentient beings. So the second bhumi, special practice in ethics, even in your dreams, no negative actions. Perfection of patience in the third bhumi, special training in the perfection of enthusiastic perseverance, concentration, and on the sixth bhumi, the special practice of the perfection of wisdom. Still not the perfection of wisdom, still training, special practice of that, because the real perfection of wisdom is attained at Buddhahood. But on the seventh bhumi, still is called an impure bhumi. On the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis, one has eliminated all of the afflicted obscurations, the delusions. One is equivalent in realization then to the Hinayana Arhats in terms of having abandoned all of the delusions. So sometimes that's called a Mahayana Nirvana. The 8th attainment of the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis. They're called the pure bhumis. On those bhumis, the Bodhisattva is now eliminating the obscurations to omniscience, which have not yet been touched from the highest philosophical school, the shedib, or obscurations to omniscience. So there's two kinds of obscurations: diluted obscurations and obscurations to omniscience. So one can say they reach the end point of nirvana. So that would be still before. In one sense, you could say Buddhahood is nirvana, or it could mean even the 8th bhumi. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times. What are the 3 times?
Past, present, and future.
Oh yeah, I thought it was 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also obviously, manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. It's not something that can be, said, oh, I don't need that, I just need bodhicitta to achieve enlightenment. Without the perfection of wisdom, the wisdom that realizes the ultimate nature of phenomena, there's no way to achieve Buddhahood. In fact, without the wisdom that realizes emptiness, there's no way to achieve even the lesser nirvana from the Lama Tsongkhapa's perspective. Even the Hinayana Arhats realize emptiness in the end to achieve that goal. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom. So the word mantra doesn't appear in sutras very much. Some cases, this is one of the rare cases, it doesn't mean that this is a tantric discourse. Like in tantras, there would be many mantras that are given and so forth. But the sense of mantra here is etymological. Do you know what the word mantra, the etymology of the word mantra means?
Protection of the mind.
Manas is one of the words for mind. Tra, I can't remember, so the root means to protect. So to protect the mind. So it's not, you might think mantra is something you say. It is. Many mantras can be verbalized, but the real meaning of mantra is that which protects the mind. And I think that's more the meaning here, although there is a spoken mantra in the next page here. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, this is generally what we call the following mantra, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as true or truth, since it is not false. Known to be true because it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is stated this way, is declared. And the mantra, his variation, sometimes the syllable Om is not there, but it's in parentheses here because sometimes it's there, certain texts, sometimes it's not. But basically, Tadyata, Om, Gate, Gate, Paragate. There's three things, right? Gate is twice, Paragate, Parasamgate. There's always these gates. Bodhi, 5 things. Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi, Spaha at the end. Tadyata means what? Do you know?
Like this.
It is like this, thus it is, or a little bit like in, I read a book on Judaism once, like the two things in Christianity and Judaism, like Amen. What's the other thing similar to Amen that maybe goes at the beginning of a sermon? Anyway, they were likening it to Tadyata and Spaha. Tadyata, there's something that sometimes in Christian and Jewish tradition, there's something that's said at the end, at the beginning and at the end. Amen, you've heard, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like Amen at the end of the prayer or something like that. So Tadyata means this is, listen, this is the way it is. Om, or not Om. Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi. And then ending with the word Svaha. Svaha can be understood to mean may this take root in the mind, may this be established in the mind. Having said this. So what is this one sense of this, and maybe I'll mention a little bit more later, one way of understanding what this means, and according to the commentators, one of the main ways, or maybe the only way, they say, Gate, these 5 stages, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi, represent the stages of practice of the Bodhisattva. Remember we said that the explicit material, explicit meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra is what subject?
Perfection of wisdom.
Yeah, perfection of wisdom. Say the object is emptiness, and the perfection, like you say, the perfection of wisdom. The hidden meaning is the progression along the Bodhisattva path. And in detail, when one goes back, all of these different paragraphs, although they seem to be just enumeration of more and more variations of emptiness, they all are representing the similar progression of the mantra. So gate means, you know what the word gate means?
Proceed.
Go.
Gone,
Gone.
past participle. Interesting, the word to walk in all languages is always, I think the linguists say, anyone here studied linguistics? In most languages, the verb to walk is irregular. Very interesting why that is the case. Also to be, like I am, you are, they are, is, and so forth. Some of the most common, most essential verbs are irregular, maybe having to do with the origin of languages. But here, gate is the past participle of to go. So gone, gone. Paragate, do you remember what I said para meant when I said paramita?
Far away. Beyond.
Beyond, yeah. Gone beyond. Gate, gate, paragate. So gone, gone, gone beyond. Parasamgate, the syllable sam is a prefix in Sanskrit. Do you know, Rajiv, what does sam mean?
Even beyond that.
Perfectly, yeah.
Perfect.
Is it perfectly, or some kind of completely or perfectly or something. Samyak Sambuddha means perfectly concluded Buddha. So here, gone beyond. Para samgate, perfectly gone beyond. Bodhi. What does Bodhi mean? Enlightenment. So the first gate means the attainment of the path of accumulation. Have you heard of the 5 paths? Usually, you haven't heard the 5 paths? I'm sorry, I interrupt your meditation.
No,
You okay?
I don't remember.
Here you go. Path of accumulation.
Preparation.
Sometimes it's called the path of
Something, something. I remember.
oh yeah, now you know the names, yeah. So, sog means collection, also means like when going out to the battle, before you go out to the battle, you get all the armor, you get all the weapons, you get the ammunition, otherwise you're in the battle and there are no swords, no spears, no cannons, and so forth. So that's the path of accumulation is generally, once one has developed spontaneous bodhicitta, until that point one has not entered into the path of accumulation, the bodhisattva, the Mahayana path of accumulation. One is not yet a bodhisattva. Even you've taken bodhisattva vows, and you call yourself bodhisattva, or someone calls you bodhisattva, or having bodhisattva ceremonies, you're not a bodhisattva actually, until you have spontaneous, unmediated bodhicitta, working spontaneously for the welfare of others out of compassion, with the aim to achieve enlightenment. Not just great compassion, that's not bodhicitta itself, but working to achieve enlightenment, whatever the cost. I hope that wasn't another political statement. There was something in the politics saying, whatever the cost, we're going to destroy the... Anyway, so first path of accumulation, this is gone. So this is gone beyond the ordinary, mundane, worldly path. The next path is called the path of preparation, or path of connection. In Tibetan we say Jorlam. I can't remember the Sanskrit. Do you know who's the Sanskrit? So Jorwa can mean connect or to prepare. So it has both meanings. It means the path upon which you prepare to have a direct realization of emptiness on the path of seeing the next path. Or the path that connects to that direct realization, the Jorlam. On the first path, you have actual bodhicitta. You have not yet necessarily realized emptiness. You have some understanding. There are 2 kinds of disciples that progress, we say, generally, you could categorize. Those of sharp faculties and those of dull faculties. Aryadeva, probably among other people. So the Buddha also referred to that, not just Aryadeva. The people who are followers of sharp faculty, of the faculties here it's meaning one particular enumeration when we talk about the Bodhisattva's qualities of the 37 facets of enlightenment. We talk about 5 faculties. One of mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, and so forth among them. And this is mainly talking about the faculty of wisdom. So those who have sharp wisdom, and those are the followers of dull faculties, they have a lesser acuity of wisdom. Of those 2 kind of disciples, they have different modes of achieving bodhicitta. Do you know, Venerable? The practitioners with dull faculties were also called followers of scripture, whereas the disciples of sharp faculties are called followers of what?
Wisdom.
reasoning, followers of reasoning. So followers of scripture, followers of reasoning. So the followers of scripture, the dull faculty, what's the main way they develop bodhicitta, main method? The meditation on the 7 points of cause and effect. There's 6 causes, the 7th element is bodhicitta itself. What are they? Recognizing that all sentient beings have been our mother. You know this?
Yep.
What's the next one?
Kindness,
Remembering their kindness.
equalizing.
What's the third one? Repaying
Wanting
their
to
kindness,
repay
or is that both together?
Wanting to repay is the third, isn't it?
Repaying their kindness. What's the 4th one?
Is it then equalizing?
No, equalize is not in
Disadvantages of self-care?
it. Jeff, you must know that. Oh, come on, this is like this word. Oh. I say Sempamba. I'm disappointed. I won't tell Lauren, he would be disappointed. The 7.
Everyone's disappointed, don't worry about it.
Not just me. So the next one is called, either you could translate as heartwarming love, Yongwei Jompa. It's not full-fledged meaning of love. Full-fledged meaning of love from the Buddhist perspective means a mind that wishes other people to be endowed with happiness. The full-fledged meaning of compassion is a mind that wishes other people to be free of suffering, right? Wanting them to be happy is love. Wanting them to be free of suffering is compassion. Generally, if you have one, you have the other, but they may not be manifest at the same time. If you see a little child who's crying, one moment you want them to be happy, and the next minute you want them to be free of their suffering, and they're mixed together, but they're not exactly the same thing. But this love, the 4th factor here, is not the full Maitri, like the loving one, Maitreya, not full love. It is what's called attractive love, heartwarming love. What it means is, in viewing sentient beings, the mind becomes warm, and one sees them as objects to cherish, precious and so forth. Then what's the next one? So we had recognizing all sentient beings as mother, remembering their kindness, repaying, having the obligation, realizing you must repay their kindness, heartwarming love, and what?
Equalizing oneself with others.
No equalizing, she said no equalizing.
I got it. No, I was wrong. Exchange?
No, that's the other method. Do you know, Jeff?
Again, no.
Great compassion. Right? So, sometimes people say, well, how could it, not recognizing that this 4th one is attractive, heartwarming love, attractive love. Some people will say, well, how could great compassion come afterwards? Because they're of one nature, heart, love and compassion. This is not full-fledged love. Yeah?
I'm sorry, could you repeat what that list is called?
These are called the 7 factors of cause and effect to generate bodhicitta. That particular method apparently arose from Maitreya, the future Buddha Maitreya. One of the Buddha's disciples was also called the Bodhisattva Maitreya, who sometimes is understood to be of the same continuum. Just because you have the same name doesn't mean you're of the same mental continuum, right? Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean? Just because a Bodhisattva might have been called Maitreya doesn't mean that he was necessarily of the same mental continuum of the Buddha Maitreya. But sometimes it's said that the Bodhisattva Maitreya, who existed in the time of the Buddha, one of the 8 great Bodhisattvas, he was actually emanation of the future Buddha Maitreya. But anyway, it means the loving one. So when a Sangha went to Tashita heaven to receive teachings, you know this story, probably you've heard many times, Maitreya gave several treatises, the 5 great treatises, and I think in there, maybe there or maybe other oral traditions that he gave, the seven points. They're not 7 causes. There's 6 causes, and the 7th thing is bodhicitta itself. So 7 elements of cause and effect. So we've got recognizing all sentient beings as his mother, recalling their kindness, and developing the obligation, responsibility. I must repay their kindness. Then feeling this heartwarming love and intensifying that to compassion. I must eliminate their suffering. Then the 6th, just before bodhicitta, is called what? Do you know? Don't disappoint me.
Sorry.
What is it?
Individual responsibility.
Can translate as universal responsibility. Laksam, which means higher thought. His Holiness sort of, the translators of His Holiness kind of translated when His Holiness said that some years ago. Quite good. Universal responsibility. It means not just compassion, great compassion, but now intensified to the state that if I don't do something myself, all these people are going to continue to suffer, especially those that I have this special karmic connection with. So thinking, I myself must achieve enlightenment. It's like, this is the culmination of when you do Tonglen meditation. You know Tonglen? You know Tonglen? Anna?
Yeah, I heard about it.
Oh, so Tonglen means giving and taking. Usually you begin by taking. It's a Tonglen. Tongwa in Tibetan means like if you give something, it's Tongwa. Lenpa, taking. So what it means is a particular, very powerful meditative state where you already have an understanding of love and compassion. And out of a great compassion for sentient beings, you imagine taking on all their sufferings. Just like a mother or father would, or a dear friend would be very happy to take on the sufferings of someone. You know, if your child is a fever, oh, may it ripen on me. Well, please let me take that, you know. And then taking that on out of compassion, and then imagine sending out all of your good qualities, your healthy body or any good qualities, your wealth and so forth, sending that out, giving to all sentient beings with love. Taking out of compassion, giving with love. And then imagining, recognizing when does that, even with the breathing. As you breathe in, imagine taking in the sufferings of sentient beings. Breathing out, imagine sending out all your good qualities. Very profound practice, especially of the Kadampa Geshis. This kind of oral tradition came from Atisha, who went to, what was it, Subarnadipa, what do we call? Indonesia, Sumatra. And studied for 12 years with his guru there, who passed on these Mahayana teachings on bodhicitta. So that can be joined with the breathing. And even your breathing, then, you know, right now, is your breathing virtuous or non-virtuous? Maybe mostly neutral, but sometimes when you're angry, maybe even the breathing becomes non-virtuous. But in the secret biography of Lama Tsongkhapa by, I think, Kedrup Che, one of his disciples, it says, praising Lama Tsongkhapa, you whose breathing becomes a boon for all sentient beings. So it's referring to not only Tonglen, maybe also to other tantric breathing meditations, but especially Tonglen. If we can, like Song Rinpoche said, rather than being mindful of, walking and the mindful of your breathing and so forth, more important, in Mahayana, to be mindful of the precepts of Lojo to develop bodhicitta. So to be mindful, when you're just sitting in the office and there's nothing to do and you're just waiting, and do Tonglen. You need to understand the meaning, how to do it. Imagine taking on the suffering of others so that they be free, feel joy in that, and sending out your good qualities. Especially if you understand emptiness, some understanding of emptiness, all of this becomes possible because they're empty of inherent existence. We can achieve that. Even right now it seems impossible. When we talk about the Jataka tales on Wednesday, this will become more apparent, these incredible deeds that the Buddha did on the Bodhisattva path.
Venerable.
Yes.
So the low faculty you said would use 7-point method. What would the high faculty use then?
The high faculty, the sharp faculty, the followers of reasoning, use what's called the practice of equalizing and exchanging self with others. And say, for instance, if you have already an insight into emptiness, so the sharper faculty ones even have a realization of emptiness before they develop bodhicitta. Sometimes we think, bodhicitta is easier, it's conventional, but emptiness, whoa, forget it. Actually, the practitioners of sharp faculty actually have some realization, doesn't mean direct realization, but have some realization, insight into emptiness first. They're still motivated to develop bodhicitta, but they see that if they realize that the self does not inherently exist, then there's no self to cherish. That we have cherished from beginningless time. The self-cherishing thought has no basis in fact. That's an erroneous mind. It gives them the courage to be able to cherish others more than themselves. The followers of scripture, they're called the followers of duller faculties. It doesn't mean they're dull faculties. Compared to us, they're incredible, but not as sharp. They don't necessarily realize emptiness first. They develop bodhicitta through the more difficult method of the 7 points that we talked about. So, recognizing all sentient beings, mother, remembering their kindness, developing the obligation to repay the kindness, heartwarming love, attractive love, compassion, great compassion, universal intention, and then on the basis of that, recognize I must achieve enlightenment. When that thought arises spontaneously based on love and compassion and so forth, that's when, even right now when we do it, that's what's called bodhicitta. When it arises naturally because of habituation, seeing many, many reasons and practicing for a long time with a great accumulation of merit, that's called spontaneous bodhicitta. So the followers of scripture, the followers of duller, it's still not dull faculties, like some politicians we could mention. And then, once they have spontaneous bodhicitta, have they entered the Mahayana path?
Yes.
Jeff says no.
First.
Of course they have. That's the definition of the entry to the path of accumulation. So bodhisattvas on the path of accumulation are of two kinds. Those who have achieved that first because of being duller in faculty, using mainly the method of 7 points of cause and effect. They have not yet realized emptiness, but they have an understanding of it. They haven't had a deep insight into it. But then there are those who have actually realized emptiness before the path of accumulation. Those that are followers of sharp faculties. And on the basis of that, they were able to on the basis of recognizing the defects of the self-cherishing thought, the great, incredible benefits of cherishing others, they can actually practice equalizing oneself, equalizing and exchanging self with others. There's two stages. Equalizing oneself with others, like say the example would be, if there's a last piece of pizza on the table, And you're looking around, and the Venerable Varahi's sort of looked at it a couple of times, and Mike has looked at Jody's kind of inching her hand out there, and our normal state is that cherish ourselves first. Equalizing would mean, maybe say, well, let's divide it up, not just for myself myself alone. Exchanging oneself with others means having seen the defects of any cherishing of oneself at all as the doorway of all downfalls, and that the cherishing of others is the foundation of all good qualities. Cherishing others allows you to keep morality rather than, stealing or killing or whatever. Cherishing others is what allows you to keep your precepts, to develop higher qualities, to achieve bodhicitta, to achieve enlightenment, all the bodhisattva qualities. So in that sense, completely working all the time for the welfare of others. And once one develops that exchange of self and others, like in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, do you know the chapter that talks about that? Do you know which chapter is that in the... Which chapter in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara by Shantideva is the chapter where he talks about equalizing and exchanging self and others?
7.
And Rajiv thinks 7th? Which is the 7th chapter? When you just say 7th, it doesn't know which topic is covered in 7th.
I know 9th is the wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
So I think I'm not absolutely, I can't recall directly, but I think it's the chapter on concentration, which has a couple of important elements. And correct me if you remember that wrong. One of the things it begins with is talking about for the monks, from the monk's point of view, the main obstacle to developing concentration for the continuity of many lifetimes is sexual desire. So meditating on the repulsiveness of the body, the defects of attachment and so forth. So for a woman it should be also the defects of the male body and repulsiveness and so forth. Then it goes into developing single-pointed concentration, the concentration chapter. And then the purpose of that concentration is to develop bodhicitta through equalizing and exchanging self and others. So as you're walking down the street and you see someone on the sidewalk with their little cardboard and, help me and their can or whatever, or, sick or whatever, to put yourself, even in a situation like that, Shantideva says, put yourself in their shoes and say, look at that guy walking down the street with all the money. They have money to spare. They have never done anything for me. Putting yourself in their situation, and many examples like that. If you have a chance to, on the basis of having heard this now, maybe go back over that you have heard before, but maybe didn't resonate with you, how it dovetails with our practice. So the path of accumulation. There's these two kinds of bodhisattvas. There is the just entered in. They're still accumulating the rest of the merit and insights and things to go on to the path of preparation. The path of preparation, the demarcation between the path of accumulation and the path of preparation. Anyone know? You know that?
Say it again, the demarcation.
Demarcation. What's the point in which you say you've now entered? It's not like suddenly there's a street sign or something like that. How do you know, how would you say that someone is on the path of preparation? So on the path of accumulation, do you have samadhi? At a certain point, the bodhisattva, even if they might have developed it before, single-pointed concentration, shamatha. Even non-Buddhists develop shamatha, right? And worldly, mundane vipassana. On the path of accumulation, though, some bodhisattvas have not yet developed, at the beginning, have not yet developed shamatha, but definitely during the path of accumulation, they develop shamatha and even vipassana. meditating on emptiness. But at the point when they have a union of shamatha and vipassana, meditating on emptiness, they enter into the path of preparation. Because that's still realizing emptiness intellectually by means of a mental image, even with the union of shamatha and vipassana here. Path of preparation is preparing them for a direct realization of emptiness. So now anyone on the path of accumulation and beyond has spontaneous bodhicitta. On the path of accumulation, some have deeper insight into emptiness than others, depending on how sharp their faculties are. On the path of preparation, now there is a union of shamatha and vipassana. Do you know what that means? You know what shamatha means? What is shamatha?
Come abiding.
That's one way of translating. Calm abiding,
Single pointed.
tranquil abiding, not single pointed concentration. I mean, you could, but that's not. Single pointed concentration is better a translation of samadhi. Samadhi, or in Tibetan say tingzen. That's all kind of, there are, let's say, actual shamatha, fully qualified shamatha, is a samadhi, but there are many other kinds of samadhis, single-pointed concentrations. The very first qualified samadhi would be shamatha. Okay? Shamatha, or calm abiding, means that one's mind is actually almost like of the level of the first form realm. One has separated from attachment to the desire realm. So that's why in the time of the Buddha, the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, there was an expression about liberation in this life. Have you ever heard of that? Like a tong, what is it called? Tong de something. Even though it might take several lifetimes to achieve nirvana, they had some special method to be content, and that was to achieve in the Pali tradition they say jhanas. Have you heard that term, jhanas?
Yeah.
Is that what they say, jhanas, right? Jhanas, yeah. So what is the Sanskrit word for that, do you know?
I think it's streams, I would say, like different various streams.
That's not Sanskrit. I said, what's the Sanskrit word that jhana? It's dhyana.
Yeah.
Not Diana, that was princess, right? Dhyana, D-H-Y-A-N-A. When that is transferred into Pali, simplified as D-H-Y, there are no different conjunct consonants in Pali. So like karma in Sanskrit, R-M becomes what in Pali? M-M, kama. And dhyana, for some reason the rule, the D-H-Y becomes J, J-H-A-N-A. It's aspirated H, it's not two different letters. So achieving those shamatha and the preparation to the first jhana, or first dhyana, one is separated from attachment in this world. So all of the ordinary attachment, lust, and so forth is not abandoned. They're abandoned in the sense that they're not present in the mind, but totally subdued, while one has not lost the continuity of that concentration. That doesn't mean you can rise from that concentration. It doesn't mean you've lost the continuity. What would lose the continuity is you go to town and you look in the windows, the department store, you look at the pretty girls or boys or something, and desire or anger or things slowly begin to seep in again, and you lose your concentration. But some of the monks in isolation, keeping their vows, that was their candy. I remember I was at Land of Medicine Buddha, there was one person there, this lady, she used to refer to the beautiful men, that she'd see as eye candy. I don't know if men, do you ever say that about women? Eye candy? Yeah. It's like, oh, Richard Gere, there's real eye candy, or this person. Yeah. So this was the monks' candy. This is what, still Dharma. So when they had problems, they would just, even they didn't realize selflessness yet. On the basis of keeping their vows, the Vinaya, they could develop this concentration of the first dhyana or first jhana and beyond, and very, very blissful. All of the, no suffering of the desire realm present. Can you hear? You were saying? Yeah, I thought you were.
No, I was itching.
Oh, you're itching. Okay.
I have allergies.
Okay. No, I thought maybe you were saying you couldn't hear. There we go. So here on the path of preparation, the second path, they're meditating. Everyone now near the end of that path is meditating on emptiness with a combination of shamatha, single point of concentration, and the ability to analyze within that without losing the clarity of that and the stability of that meditation. That's called vipassana, like putting a koi fish. You know koi fish? Yeah, it doesn't have to be koi fish. In the pond, for trout even. And at first, when the fish is there unskilled, every time it moves, it ripples the water. You ever see it sometime when the fish are going, you can see little ripples on the top because it caused some waves, compression, and also brings up the dust, the dirt from the bottom. Like that, even though you've achieved shamatha, when you try to analyze emptiness within it, it causes the stability of the mind to be gone. Before you could just stay on one thing, now some other distractions can come up, like the ripples on a lake, and also afflictions can come up, like the dirt from the bottom. Attachment might rise. Then you have to learn how to calm down again, stabilize the mind, move the analysis in a very subtle way, but still very detailed way. That's the development of vipassana. When that's perfected, the analysis can be swimming through the shamatha. There's a unification of shamatha and vipassana. Like the shamatha is there, cool water, no dust is coming from the bottom, no dirt is being brought up, no ripples on the top, and you're analyzing. So they have that kind of state, analyzing emptiness. And they realize emptiness deeper and deeper. Then at the point when they have a direct realization of emptiness, what that means is that they no longer are knowing emptiness by means of imagining it. That image of the imagination is due to what we call a mental image. Like a veil, like the traditional veils of the ancient world. Like the veils becoming thinner and thinner and thinner until finally the mental image of emptiness is gone and one perceives it barely, unmediated by any mental image. Direct realization, bare realization of emptiness. That is the entry into the third path. Paragati. Gati were the first two paths. Gone beyond. Why is the third path now is different than the first two? Gone beyond? Because once you have a direct realization of emptiness, you are called an Arya being, right? You realized emptiness directly.
Is that a moment or continuous realization?
Continuous realization. Even when you're no longer realizing that, you have the imprint of that in your mind, and you no longer have certain delusions. But it doesn't mean all delusions are gone. But achievement, direct realization of emptiness, all of the so-called intellectually formed delusions are eradicated. One no longer falls under prey of those.
But it's not the first moment of direct realization.
What's not the first moment?
We're not talking about the first time you directly realize emptiness momentarily. You're talking about the continuous...
The first moment you realize it even at a moment, you're in if you realized it directly, you're in meditative equipoise, and it's not like it's only a moment and then it's gone, like Lisa was talking about. She had some clarity and then it was gone. It's not like that. You have a continuity. It might be many hours that you're in meditative equipoise, or days. But even from the first moment, certain delusions now no longer, they have been abandoned from your mind. Path of seeing, Tonglang. Then, when one rises from that, collects more merit, one maybe practices the 6 perfections, generosity and so forth, morality, one collects merit also by building stupas, by making prostrations and mandala offerings and everything, offerings to the Buddhas. When one again enters into a meditative equipoise and emptiness, when one has further conditions, one enters into the path of meditation. This is parasamgati, the 4th path. So the path of accumulation, gati, path of preparation, gati, path of seeing, paragati. Because it's gone beyond the world. It's the first supra-mundane, not supra, right? Beyond the mundane path. Why is it called supra-mundane? Because one no longer is totally dominated by the conventional reality. One has a realization of its emptiness, direct, unmediated, bare perception of emptiness. So one is a noble being, one is an Arya being. It's said that that's the actual definition of Sangha. You know, we think of Sangha, monks and nuns, or group of monks and nuns. Those groups of people are what are called the representational Sangha. Actual Sangha doesn't have to be, one doesn't have to be in a group or even ordained. Even a layperson, when they realize emptiness directly, they become a member of this Arya Sangha, those who have realized emptiness directly. You become a noble being. That's the origin of the expression, the 4 Arya truths, the 4 noble truths. It's not like the truths themselves are noble. You would say they're ennobling, because if you meditate on them, they can bring the noble path, the Arya path, the path of seeing. But they're said to be truths for an Arya being. Up till then, they're not, that's probably true. Samsara is suffering, and there is an origin of suffering. It's not complete direct realization. When you have a direct realization of emptiness, those 4 truths are known directly. The emptiness of those four truths and their emptiness is perceived directly, and so they are truths for an Arya being. That would be one way to explain the 4 Arya truths. Here I'm translating Arya is what we often say, the 4 noble truths, right? You've all heard of that, right? 4 noble truths. Yeah.
But it will show these Arya beings on the path of seeing, they know each other no matter wherever they are. Location, they can talk to each other.
You get a medallion. You get a special Arya medallion that recognizes. No, I'm just joking. We were talking about medallions.
So they have the clairvoyance and clairaudience to talk.
They definitely, even on the path of preparation, the bodhisattvas on the path of preparation. I think, isn't it a path of accumulation? I can't remember. So maybe even the 3rd level, the path of accumulation. And I'll have to check. They develop a certain memory, a stable memory of every Dharma teaching they ever received. That means even clairvoyance in the past. Every Dharma teaching. Right now, I think, didn't Dalai Lama teach that once? You know exactly everything. So they have clairvoyance, even on the path of accumulation, definitely on the path of preparation, but path of seeing there. Someone who's an Arya being is like, we can't imagine. Even someone just on the path of accumulation, first path, Bodhisattva. To us, they would be indistinguishable from Buddha. You know, there's just like, it's so like a sun right next to us compared to a nova, or, you know, something. The greater and greater intensities, like of the intensity of insight of the Buddhas, still to us that we can't differentiate the differences. So even Arhat on the Hinayana path, to us, they're great. They have compassion also, not the compassion that impels them to take rebirth for the sake of sentient beings, but they have great compassion, they have insight, they have direct realization of emptiness and so forth. To us also, they would look like Buddha. We wouldn't know the difference. We couldn't ask the right questions, you know, to differentiate. So, gate. This mantra is kind of reminding now of the hidden meaning about the extensive deeds of the Bodhisattva. You should go, gone beyond, path of seeing, right? Parasamgate, perfectly gone beyond. So now you enhance that on the path of meditation, having realized emptiness directly in the path of seeing. Now you meditate on that again and again, and taking off the layers of obscurations from the mind, more subtle and subtle delusions being cleansed from the mind, more and more subtle obscurations, up until still, say the up until the 8th bhumi, say at the end of the 7th bhumi, still on the path of meditation. Then within the path of meditation, one begins to eliminate the subtle obscurations to omniscience on the 8th, 9th, and 10th bhumis. At the end of the 10th bhumi, you enter into what's called the Vajra-like meditative equipoise. And in one instant, the next instant, one becomes totally enlightened. Bodhi. Gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi, svaha. May it be, may that take root in my mind. So, one doesn't have to, although this mantra, these words are called the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, and it does say that here, the word, this can mean, it's not so much talking about it as something that you recite, although this mantra is recited to overcome obstacles and so forth, but you can think of it as something that protects the mind, especially if you've understood emptiness and the progression that we should go through. First to realize, to develop bodhicitta and to realize emptiness on the path of accumulation, gone beyond the world. You're no longer an ordinary being. Then on the path of preparation, to have a meditate on emptiness supported by your bodhicitta with the unification of shamatha and vipassana. When that has a direct realization, that unification of shamatha and vipassana has a direct realization of emptiness, you enter into the path of seeing, paragati. So para now indicates gone beyond the mundane world. You are super mundane, you are an Arya being. Then enhancing that, parasamgate, perfectly gone beyond path of meditation. At the end of that, Vajra-like meditative equipoise, when you arise from that, you are an omniscient being. Even a 10th level bodhisattva, even to the high bodhisattva, is indistinguishable from Buddha. It's said sometimes that Chandrakirti, some of these other great scholars that came to the world that taught, wrote commentaries about Nagarjuna and so forth, were actually 10th level bodhisattvas. Manjushri told Lama Tsongkhapa that Chandrakirti, Lama Tsongkhapa asked, is Chandrakirti a reliable commentator to rely on, the Madhyamakavatara, to rely on explaining Nagarjuna's teachings? You ever heard this? What did he say? What did Manjushri say? Oh, I thought you were saying you knew.
No, Khetso Rinpoche is teaching that Chandrakirti schools here.
Oh, okay. No, but I'm talking about this is Lama Tsongkhapa. Before he really was going to put all this effort into studying Chandrakirti, he's asking, because there were all sorts of commentators in India on Nagarjuna's thought. And Lama Tsongkhapa asked Manjushri, Chandrakirti reliable? You know, where? Yeah. And Manjushri went, he's a 10th level bodhisattva, indistinguishable from Buddha, in other words. You know, just the next moment it will be Bodhi. Now it's Parasamgoti, right? Who's come to the world solely with the intention of illuminating Nagarjuna's thought. You know, it's totally reliable. That's why, you know, the tradition of the great faith in these commentaries, that there's no error in them. Translators may have missed, you know, making the wood blocks and syllables might have gotten wrong, so you have to always check, but the basic there. So after the mantra it says, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the perfection of wisdom like that. So like that means these previous direct instructions, but also like that in the sense of path of preparation, path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of what do we say? Path of meditation. Then the Bodhi is also called Miloblang, path of no more learning. In Western world, what would we call that? When you know you graduated from high school, so it's sort of like the path of graduation. There's no more learning. You don't have to keep on taking tests or anything like that. Here it's actually talking about real realization, not just having reached some credential. It's sort of like,
You get a job then.
yeah, it's Bodhi. Now your job is perfectly, constantly, spontaneously benefiting all sentient beings. Then the Bhagavan, referring to the Buddha, right, arose from that concentration. All this time, while all this was going on, Buddha's sitting there in knowing, because his mind is not as though if he's concentrated on emptiness, all of his senses, like us, would, at the beginning when you develop these great concentrations, your senses are not functioning, only your mental consciousness is functioning. You are aware of nothing else, which is an advantage in concentrating. But for the case of the Buddha, all of his senses are still functioning because his whole body is of completely different nature than us. It's an emanation of his mind. So he knows everything that's happened. He's heard all of this. It's not like he was, you know, like wake someone up with what happened, you know. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, Sadhu, sadhu, well said, son of the lineage. Son of the lineage? What does that mean? Kula, what is it? Kula Putra?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Sometimes people say,
Same country.
noble son, like what we said, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage is noble son or noble daughter. This is not so much about talking about nobility. Son of the lineage, what lineage is this talking about?
Lineage of
Continue.
Buddha? Become a Buddha.
To become a Buddhist?
A Buddha. Like if you're a son of the lineage, you're a bodhisattva who's on the
So
lineage.
someone
of
who's a
Buddha.
son of the lineage is a bodhisattva?
That's what I'm understanding it.
Okay, I'm just asking what you think.
Actually, that's the lineage right there.
Well, there's a different lineage of different meaning of lineage. This is like a continuity, yeah. But here, when we talk about lineage here, we're talking about, there are different stages. When you develop spontaneous great compassion, authentic great compassion, it's said to have you have said to awaken the Buddha lineage. Now, you could say, sometimes people think Buddha lineage means Buddha nature, and we all have Buddha nature now. We do have Buddha nature now. Do you know what Buddha nature means from the Prasangika point of view? Anna, are you awake enough to know what I'm asking? Or are you still trying to? What What is the definition of Buddha nature? Buddha potential?
Compassion?
No. Our Buddha potential, why everyone has Buddha potential? Buddha potential refers to the emptiness of our mind. The emptiness of the mind. That's our Buddha potential. Because as we've understood a little bit here today, when you understand what emptiness means is things can change. Things are capable of developing. It's not static. It's not stuck in one thing. When one progresses along the path and eliminates all the obstacles from that mind, the mind is always empty of inherent existence, but at various times the delusions are becoming less and less. At the point when one becomes a Buddha, what was previously called Buddha potential, the emptiness of the mind, is now called what? When one achieves enlightenment. Do you know, Venerable?
All the obscurations are gone.
When the emptiness of the mind of the Buddha is called what?
Tathagata.
The spavavikakaya, the nature body. That means the emptiness of the Buddha's omniscient mind.
Wow.
So our mind now is kind of like the emptiness. Our mind now will become the wisdom dharmakaya. There's two kinds of dharmakaya, right? The omniscient mind itself and the emptiness of the omniscient mind. The emptiness of, they say, our mind now eventually becomes the omniscient mind of the Buddha, when we become Buddha. The emptiness of our mind now is called Buddha potential. And when we become Buddha, it's no longer just a potential, it's called the nature body, the spavavikakaya. It's one of the two dharmakayas. When we talk about dharma, we talk about four bodies, right? If we talk about the four kayas, what are they? Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, those are the two form bodies. Rupakaya, the rupa means form, so you could just say Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. But each of them, if you don't see this, again, you don't see my fingers, so you just say Rupakaya, form bodies, the Nirmanakaya, like the Buddha, Shakyamuni, and the Sambhogakaya, like that appeared to the Arya Bodhisattvas. Other people can't see. Then the Dharmakaya has two kinds. The wisdom Dharmakaya, the omniscient mind, changing moment by moment, and its emptiness is also called the kaya. It's called the nature body, the spavavikakaya. And sometimes we say the four kayas, in your tantric sadhanas and so forth. When you get the four initiations of Tantra there to leave seeds to achieve these four kayas. So then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration, commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. So the lineage here means that he's recognizing Avalokiteshvara as being of the Mahayana lineage. That means not only has he developed great compassion, where he's awakened the Mahayana lineage, he's actually developed actual bodhicitta and is a member of the Mahayana lineage. He is actually a Mahayanist. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, and even the Tathagatas rejoice. So, during this whole time, although it mentioned the Bhagavan at the beginning, the Buddha, that he was seated in the meditative equipoise, he didn't say anything then. This is the first words he's uttered. Yet all of what has come before is still said to be Buddha Vachana, the speech of the Buddha, because it's said to be three kinds. That which the Buddha gave permission for, like when the people who recited it said, "Thus did I hear at one time, this has happened," Buddha gave permission for that. Then things that were inspired by the Buddha, where it said, then due to the inspiration of Buddha, or with the power of, then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should the Bodhisattvas how should those who wish to train in the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to do that? That's inspired by the Buddha's presence, by his mind, the synchronicity, the dependent arising that he has created here. And then the third kind of Buddha Vachana, actual Buddha speeches, where the Buddha actually says things. You know, in some of the sutras, the Buddha says, Shariputra, this or that, or listen, like in the Vajracetaka, the Diamond Sutra, and so forth. So this is all the Buddha said. You say two sentences, depends if you put commas or maybe one sentence. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharidvati Putra, so Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, who was giving most of the talk, those surrounding in their entirety, all of the monks, and Bodhisattva Sangha, maybe those in other realms that are listening with divine ear or seeing with divine eye, along with the worlds of gods. So the gods would mean what? Yahweh? I don't know. Yahweh. I don't mean to be demeaning, but I don't know. Yahweh. Not sure what Yahweh is. You know what I mean by Yahweh? What people usually call God in the Bible. Whether Yahweh is actually a spirit? I mean, in the Old Testament, who's masquerading as Yahweh probably was some kind of spirit, because he said you should kill these goats and, you know, kill those people because they looked askance or something, you know, all sorts of things. I think the God that Jesus was referring to might have been the omniscient mind. There are stories that missing years of Jesus' life. Have you heard of that? Do you know where he went, Venerable?
India.
There's some places in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, maybe Jammu, some isolated monasteries that supposedly Jesus, when he was a young man, he was 16 or 17, traveled to and studied for many, many years until his 30s when he went back to the Middle East. He referred to himself, or he was referred to as the Son of God, right? Sometimes he said, I am not the Son of God. But it's interesting, one of the names of, one of the epithets, honorific names of bodhisattvas, how would you translate Galway Se? Huh?
Tibetan word?
Galway Se.
Yeah.
Jina Putra.
Yeah, just like.
Yeah, well, how would you translate it into English?
Mongolian?
I don't want Mongolian, I want English.
The son of the enlightened being.
Yeah, I could say Jina. Jina means conqueror. Putra means son. S-O-N, not S-U-N. Like Rajaputra. Have you heard of Rajaputra?
King's son.
Prince, yeah, the son of the king is going to become the king eventually. So as soon as you get that name, you were revered by the ministers. Well, no one's going to do anything bad in your presence because you're going to eventually become the king, right? Nowadays, again, in modern Hindi, Rajaputra becomes Rajput. There's even that area, town, city in India, Rajput, right? You know?
Jaipur.
Jaipur and places like that. So Rajaputra, son of the king. And in emulation of that, the Buddha referred to the bodhisattvas not just as sons of the king, but sons of the conqueror. He himself, the Buddha, is the conqueror of all the delusions. He has conquered in his own mind, reached the ultimate goal of enlightenment. So he's called the conqueror, the Jina, or the Gelwa. Not Gelwa doesn't mean king. Gelpo means king. Gelwa means conqueror. Jina. And the sons are the bodhisattvas who are not yet Buddhas. In the same way, as soon as you develop bodhicitta, you are a son of the conqueror. You are a Jinaputra. And even the worldly gods come and make offerings to you, realizing that you have bodhicitta. And the bodhisattvas, other bodhisattvas, make offerings to you. In the beginning of the Madhyamaka Avatara by Chandrakirti, which is about emptiness, the praise is to great compassion, not to emptiness or the wisdom of emptiness, prajnaparamita. So very, very interesting. You know, the scholars say, why did he make praise to great compassion? Because Chandrakirti says in there, and Lama Yeshe used to emphasize this, by praising the crescent moon, the first crescent, after the black, what do you call it, no moon, what is that called? New moon. Is that called new moon? Yeah, there's no moon, new moon. The first crescent, by praising that, you are praising indirectly the full moon. So by praising the bodhisattvas, you are praising what they will become, Buddha. And by praising the cause of the bodhisattvas, great compassion, you are praising that. And so he said, for that reason, it's suitable to pay homage to great compassion. So the Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, Sharivattiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, so that means all the, as I said, monks and bodhisattvas, nuns, the world of gods, so I kind of got on a side trip here talking about Yahweh, whether Yahweh could be called a Sura, or a Deva, or a Asura. Probably not, in my opinion, not Asura. So they are very powerful, maybe the various versions that appeared at various times that had influence over the Israelis may have been, my opinion, excuse me if I just give some opinion, they may have been very powerful spirits. The world of gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas were overjoyed and highly praised, that spoken by the Bhagavan. So at the end of a sutra like this, the implication is that you yourself should feel rejoiced that the Buddha arranged this with his intention, spoke these words of assurance that this is the correct way to practice the perfection of wisdom. Now there are many other details. As I said, we could spend weeks. Two of these books go into much more detail. If you want to really study about the fourfold profundity, the eightfold profundity, that different commentators, I tried to give a synthesis of those, but I think we've got generally some idea of this. So I want to offer that to you. What is our time of finishing? 4:30? So let's spend some time. You can relax if you want to take a pee break, but if there's any questions, let's have a period of question and answer. It doesn't have to be on this, but it might be nice if you had some questions about this before asking about Madame Blavatsky or something.
When you attain the path of seeing, within the Mayahana path, are you attaining that with the gross mind, or are they implying that you're attaining it with the very subtle mind?
My understanding in the Sutra path, there's no talk of the subtlemost mind that is mentioned in Tantra. It's said that by achieving the 10th bhumi, according to the Sutra path, like say here, like Parasamgati, the end of the path of meditation, what is a 10th level bodhisattva, one still has to enter the tantric path. The only way to achieve enlightenment is through cultivating that subtlemost mind, realizing emptiness. So it's at that point that the Buddhas appear to that bodhisattva and bestow the vase initiation and secret initiation and the knowledge, what do I say? Wisdom gnosis initiation, maybe consort and so forth, and that they, on the basis of that, in just a few moments, they eliminate the subtlemost obscurations to omniscience. So it's said that from the tantric point of view, you can't achieve enlightenment even this way, but this gets you
So high up.
so high up that it's just like a matter of minutes or seconds or a day or something like
That's
that.
for us.
But for us, even if we enter the tantric path, we have to practice that for a long, long period of time in stages. But their mind is so, so close to that goal, but they still have to actualize that subtlemost mind. So all of this is realizing this with the gross mind. Now, if you try to say if you do practice, how many people here have had tantric initiations? You haven't, Eric? Have you had taken tantric? Venerable? No, right? Oh. I just wanted to see him more animated. I got 2 nods from him. So say, for instance, in the practice of Tantra, there's something called deity yoga, where you imagine yourself as a deity. Probably most of what we, in the generation stage, most of what we're dealing with is still the gross mind, but we're imagining it as the subtlemost mind. So all of these teachings are completely applicable to that. When you're trying to imagine arising out of emptiness, the same emptiness here with this mind in these ways. Okay, and really today we had, this weekend, we haven't mentioned the various, just some subtle reasonings. It's said that once you've recognized, is the correct word, the object of negation inherent in existence, that phenomena, especially the self, appears to you as though it's independent, unrelated to other things. And then you ask yourself, does that exist? Could that exist? That's the hard part, recognizing, seeing that, how it's appearing. Once you've done it, you might remain in the cave meditating for 9 months, a year, 3 years, till you have a clear appearance of that. Then, to apply the reasoning or reasonings that refute that, you can achieve the understanding, the realization of emptiness. Here, just a generic, with a generic image, of course, in one hour, 1 day. So although we put most emphasis in the scriptures, when you study Lanrim Chemo or Namdal Lakchang, the liberation of the palm of the hand, we put all the emphasis on, although it says the first step is realizing the object of negation, most of the emphasis is on the reasoning, like realizing the object of negation, recognizing the pervasion, that if it existed that way, it would have to be one with the aggregates or different than the aggregates, then proving to yourself through logic that it's not one with the aggregates, then proving it's not different than the aggregates, then meditating on that until you see that it's not the, if it was really inherently existent, it would have to be this or this. It's not this, it's not that, then it doesn't exist like that. Most of the emphasis is on the reasonings. Nagarjuna gave many reasonings. There's the diamond slivers and the reasoning of dependent arising and all sorts of different reasonings. But when it gets down to it, any of those reasonings, once you've recognized the object of negation, the appearance of an inherently existent self, let's say, because that's where you first have an experience of emptiness. When you get that, applying the reasoning is just like, wow, this is what is said in the meditators. Okay, someone else have a question? Jeff must have a question.
Not one.
Don't you have, not one?
Not one.
Two.
Not two.
No, okay. Anna? Question? Rajiv, as I see out of the corner of my eye, but is it yours? Okay, Rajiv?
Venerable, yesterday you spoke about spirits.
Yeah, I mentioned spirits. Yeah,
You mentioned spirits.
isn't that interesting? So people, like Chinese, people always want to know about spirits. I gave a talk in Singapore once. Every year, the Amitabha Buddhist Center, our center, FPMT center there, like Buddhist Samaj, right? They would, for many years, they sponsored a talk at a big auditorium, the Electric Company Auditorium in downtown Singapore. And I happened to be visiting one year, so they said, you give the talk. And I decided to give it on death and rebirth. It was the biggest crowd that ever, like Chinese, it's death, spirits, ancestors, and so forth, and all these questions arose. And other kinds of things. If it was about karma, there would have been half that number or a quarter. It's just like when the lamas come, if they give, like I heard, Ling Rinpoche came and gave Amitayas and White Tower or something. Probably millions of people came, but for his actual Lanrim teachings, maybe much less, my guess.
Those 2 days, it was Amitabha, first was White Tara, Long Life Initiation, Amitabha the next day. Yes, it was like less than half the crowd.
Yeah, so is it like the exotic sort of thing? But anyway, question about...
Yes. So, by the way, in Nepal, when we say Daka, Dakinis,
right?
It's meant for women who are like witch and witches sort of stuff. And so,
Right, so there...
But that's a moot point. But
No, so there's a valid point. So the word Daka and Dakini, Khandro and Khandroma, like from the Tibetan etymology, Ka means space, like when we talk about Akasha, non-obstructing space. Dro means to go. Like I remember I said the word to go in every language is irregular verb. It's very interesting if you check this out. Like we say, gate is the past participle of go, gone. So one implication, an etymological translation into Tibetan is like he or she who travels through the space of non-conceptual wisdom. Like letting go of all of the ego and have a realization of emptiness. So those are the real Dakas and Dakinis. But the words that the Buddha used also referred to wild spirits that would appear, male and female spirits, Dakas and Dakinis, that were kind of like, we might think they were something special. But like you say, they can refer to something that are more mundane and are spirits. But generally, when we're talking about in Buddhism, when the words Daka and Dakini, Khandro and Khandroma appear, they're really referring to various levels of realizations. Those that are practicing the generation stage, those who are practicing the completion stage, and those who have already, their emanations of the Buddha's mind are already enlightened.
and so also yesterday, Venerable, you said about good spirits and bad spirits, and when we're born with surrounded by these spirits.
I think it depends on your karma. There might be lots, there might be just a couple, might be one, maybe none. I don't know, I'm not sure.
So
But
can they influence us?
yeah, definitely.
In good and bad ways, like if you're in bad habits or something along those lines.
Okay, I'm speculating here. Again, this is under the area of my opinion. I think the people that are authentically multiple personality disorder, those are either their own spirits that have become, that are malicious, generally malicious unless they happen to be, I mean, there's some people who so-called channel, you know, they go into some trance and then they have automatic writing, and there was some big craze a decade ago, some books, what was it called? You know what I'm talking about?
Edgar Casey. Edgar Casey.
Oh, much more recent than Edgar Cayce, you know that?
Seth?
Seth?
Yes.
What was the book called?
I'm not sure.
The
book
being
is
was
called,
Seth.
but The being is, the entity
Oh, yeah.
is Seth.
So I think sometimes they may be these spirits, or they may be desire realm gods. When I was in Malaysia many years ago, there was one German monk, very, colorful, colorful monk, big shoe. He wore the like Tibetan robes like this, but with this color, like the Theravada monks wear, because it was Malaysia mostly Theravada. And he was in a monastery that had been dedicated to Gelik Rinpoche, the Lama who died a couple of years ago, and that had been in New York and Michigan, and very nice Lama. And Gelik Rinpoche is very, very, not only a great practitioner, but very knowledgeable about Buddhism. And when he came there, there were many people in Malaysia. There are temples. Anyone from, where are you from, Anna? You're from China or?
Taiwan.
From Taiwan. Maybe the same in Taiwan. Sometimes there are temples and there are people who are supposedly healers, like they call upon Avalokiteshvara, and there's these big pujas where they recite the long mantras of Avalokiteshvara and chant and so forth. And there was someone in Malaysia at that time who claimed he had a direct connection with Avalokiteshvara and therefore could heal people. And he had very great success. And so this German monk asked Gelik Rinpoche, what's going on? Because Avalokiteshvara is actually Buddha. Generally, to have direct communication with Buddha, emanations of the Buddha is like incredibly rare and high. Like Lama Tsongkhapa, even at the beginning, he didn't have direct communication with Manjushri. It was as he got older through an intermediary and so forth. So what was the story with this guy? It's just like it was a book publisher or something. His family had a big book publishing thing. And Rinpoche said, I think what's happening is that there is a desire realm god. So this is not Asura, this is actually Deva realm. A powerful god who is a practitioner of Kriya Tantra, good Lewis Tantra, who has the divine pride of being Avalokiteshvara, and out of good heart, this person has created a karmic relationship with them, and that this deity, this desire realm god, with whom you can have a closer karmic connection, because he is not so distant from you in terms of virtue. To be able to, it's just like trying to even I wanted to talk to President Trump for some reason. I couldn't, he's just too far from me karmically right now, I'd have to, I couldn't get close. But to talk to the local alderman here if that's the right term, some local representative, maybe I could get to see them more easily. So it's more accessible, this desire realm God. So it could be that that this guy who was healing was making use of this desire realm God who has some power, because the desire realm gods, they can see us when they point their attention there. They can't see the gods above them. They can see the lower levels below them. And in antiquity, we have many stories, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, of gods sometimes interacting with people in some way. So now it's much less obvious, or if it's noticeable at all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
You were talking during the meditation in the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
Like between thoughts, the local space, if
Yeah.
you realize. So between thoughts, the space.
Well, you're saying thoughts, not
Thoughts.
talks. Between
Yeah,
thoughts,
thoughts,
right?
yeah.
Right, I'm just translating for the rest.
I say thoughts.
'Cause I had to.
So that means between thoughts, in those little moments, so there is no object of
No obvious,
consciousness.
no obvious, no
object.
obvious focus of distraction.
No, I mean no objects of consciousness, right?
No, there's always consciousness doesn't
No, I
exist unless it has an object.
Between thoughts, non-thought moment, there is no
They're,
object.
they're not non-thought moments, because that mind, what we have right now, is not a non-conceptual mind. It's a conceptual mind. So it's still a mind that has thoughts. But what is appearing to it is just sort of like space between the thoughts. It's kind of like getting an intimation of the nature of the mind, although it hasn't clarified that yet. Still a thought that's appearing to that consciousness as like space. And just to get a glimpse of that, then you can, as you hold on to that, thinking this is the nature of my mind. So that's a thought, right? That's the clear light nature. And if you can see it short time, maybe these thoughts come and then you wait for a space and then you hold on to that. That's one method of beginning to enter into trying to see the clear light nature of the mind in the Mahamudra. So that's the topic of next weekend's seminar. As I mentioned before, what we've been talking about today is it could be called Mahamudra also, because Mahamudra actually means the methods to bring about a realization of the Prajnaparamita, direct realization of emptiness. But this Mahamudra was not used, the word was not used in the Buddha Sutras, as far as anyone knows. It was coined by the Mahasiddhas, hundreds of years later. Am I gone over time? Are you okay? Okay. It's got to be so bad. Okay. So the methods here, like Nagarjuna, reasoning, in the sutras, all of this is generally talking about first developing an understanding of emptiness through reasoning, establishing emptiness, and then on the basis of that, now we've got emptiness, now I've got to develop single-pointed concentration to hold it, and then penetrative insight, vipassana, to analyze it in detail, to get it perfect, and then to realize it. That's one way. First, understand it intellectually, which takes a lot. You can see it's difficult, a lot of things to understand. A lot of times people say, I've taken all these courses, but I've never had a chance to meditate on emptiness. The Mahamudra kind of emphasizes more the experiential side. So first, to have some similitude of emptiness through recognizing the clear light nature of the mind, by recognizing, is that the right word? Recognizing, yeah. Identifying the clear light nature of the mind, even though it's not a direct realization. In so doing, your mind has to become very concentrated, and also because the very nature of the mind, the object you're looking at, is like space. Not so many thoughts coming. Perfect laboratory to do your experience of meditation in. Quiet, thoughts not coming, concentrated. Then within that concentrated state, the clear light nature of the mind, when you've used it to try to develop a similitude of shamatha, of tranquil abiding, calm abiding. Okay? It doesn't necessarily have to all have perfect calm abiding, but good concentration on the clear light nature of the mind. Then you let go of that clear light nature and you try to recognize the object of negation, the self. Now, because the mind is very quiet and concentrated, you have better chance of recognizing it. Right now, we try to recognize it. So many thoughts coming, obstacles, very difficult to do. So in the Mahamudra method, you first use the clear light nature of the mind to calm, have this clear space, clear laboratory to work in. You recognize the object of negation, then you apply these kinds of, well, we didn't even talk about the reasoning so much. You try to recognize that this self doesn't exist the way that it appears. You try to recognize how it appears. It seems to be inherently existent, not just a name, not just, I'm not pronouncing your name right, I know, but I'm pretending. Husli?
Close.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You should say close enough. You know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I don't remember the Mongolian pronunciation. So you then apply the reasonings, having seen how this appears and seeing the contradictions that would entail, if it existed that way, you come to recognize that it doesn't exist that way at all. You know, like if the reflection in the mirror that you're looking at the corner of your eye was really another person, they wouldn't necessarily scratch their chin when I do. Oh, it's scratching his chin. You know? Ha ha ha. They wouldn't laugh when I'm laughing, but that's laughing. You know, you know, just like some reasoning, you begin to realize that doesn't exist the way that it appears. So there's not really another person there. In the same way, you realize there's not really an inherently existent self here. All you're doing at that point, well, all, it's an incredibly big thing, but all you're doing is negating, merely negating the existence of what seems to be appearing. You're not negating the appearance. It definitely is appearing to the mind. What you're negating is what you think that appearance means. Like the object that seems to be implied by it. Like the reflection is definitely there. I'm thinking that there's someone there. It's not that I'm negating the reflection. Reflection is still there. But what I'm negating is what my mind is thinking that reflection means. That there's really a person there. That's not just a reflection, that that's a person, right? That's what I'm negating. Even when you negate this, for a moment, when you're meditating on emptiness, even the self does not appear. But what you're negating is not the appearance, but what you're negating is the object that's being grasped at, that's being believed, because the appearance seems to be an inherently existent person. That's how it appears. But what you realize, it's not that. There's not an inherently existent person. So at that point, all that appears to your mind is a mere vacuity, which you understand to be the mere negation of the inherently existent person in the Mahamudra method. Then when one arises from that, continuously enhancing that, one has some understanding of emptiness. Then one goes back to the conventional mind, which you've cultivated for so long before, the clear light nature of the mind. And you recognize that also is appearing to the mind. So one part of the mind watching it, that is also appearing to be inherently existent, just as the self appeared and appeared to be inherently existent. Okay? So then one uses the same logical reasonings to refute the inherent existence of the mind, this clear light nature of the mind. Even the mind is empty of inherent existence. In one of the introductions to emptiness that the Dalai Lama, the present Dalai Lama, wrote, I think it's called Key to the Middle Way, there's a sentence that always intrigued me near the end. It said, once you have an experience of the emptiness of the mind, spiritual progress is extremely rapid. Your spiritual progress can become extremely rapid.
Could you repeat that?
Once you have an experience, like realization, of the emptiness of the mind, our spiritual progress can become extremely rapid, quicken. You know, you can make quicker and quicker progress. There's something special about the mind. Why? Because the mind is the subject of all things. If the mind is empty of inherent existence, all the things it perceives also, by implication, are empty of inherent existence. So that's enough to realize, incredible potential of the mind. So in the Gelugpa tradition, that was handed down from Manjushri to Lama Tsongkhapa, and then to other lamas, to the fourth Panchen Lama, who was sometimes called the first Panchen Lama, but anyway, he wrote a commentary on the Mahamudra. Up until then, it had been secret, passed on from mouth to ear, they call it whispered lineage. That's what we'll be talking about. So in that method, the sutra part, sort of like on this level, not talking about the subtlemost mind, the Sutra Mahamudra is recognizing the clear light nature of the mind, using that as an object to develop shamatha to some degree, then recognizing the object of negation of personal selflessness, realizing the emptiness of that, then again looking at the clear light nature of the mind and using the same logic to understand the emptiness of the mind. On the basis of that, one is an exceptionally high candidate to practice the Tantric Mahamudra, which involves these wonderful practices of the completion stage, Vajra recitation and the Tumo, and bringing the airs into the central channel, into the Shishuma, having the clear light nature, the subtlemost clear light nature of the mind arise. So on the basis of this memory of the gross clear light nature of the mind, having experienced that that's empty of true existence, then when you can actualize the subtlemost clear light mind, there's not the same, your head start, because generally to utilize that subtlemost clear light nature of the mind, you have to bring a remembering consciousness through the death evolution, through the evolution of the absorption of the elements, to that point that remembers the meaning of emptiness. And so that you recognize this vacuity, the nature of the mind, as the meaning of emptiness. If you've already did that with the Sutra Mahamudra, I think much easier. So that's what we'll be talking a little bit about that more. So in the process of recognizing the clear light nature of the mind, what you were referring to was what I was saying, one of the methods to start off. There are many methods you can use, but one is just to notice that even if you're standing there watching the mind, first step is not to let your mind get it into any of the thoughts. You restrain your attention. Just watch the thoughts, like being at a cafe, where in Washington, where's the place where you go to watch people? It's a place where the politicians hang out outside and
Key Street.
Key Street?
Yeah, Key Street.
Okay, so we're in Key Street, Rajiv and I are having coffee, and we're watching, and we see some famous person, so we might get up from the chair and walk over there. Not like that, no. Stay where you are. Just watch and let go. Just see what goes by, the thoughts that are coming through your mind. That's the first step. That itself, hard to do. Then, in so doing, as you're not feeding the thoughts, by feeding the thoughts means you don't give them attention. If you give a thought attention, it's like giving it food. It stays longer. It starts to, when you remember something, oh, he did this, he did that, then he said that, then he, the mind, if you can let go of that irritating thought, because it's not being nurtured, will dissipate of its own. So there'll be times when, sort of like the cafe looks empty. The cafe of your mind, the thoughts. You're just watching, you're not following any of them. And so maybe some little space in the mind, openness, you can see, this is the nature of the mind that's always been there. It's not always filled with thoughts. That's a start. Then, even when the thoughts are there, another method. Like the example of the boulder. Even when the thought's there, you recognize through practice again and again, there's no way that thought could be there unless there was space for it to occupy. unimpeded. The mind is unimpeding and unimpeded. It's unobstructing. It doesn't obstruct the emergence of thoughts, sort of like out of the clear light nature of the mind. In analogy to when we say out of emptiness, thought emerges out of the clear light nature of the mind, and it can dissipate back into the clear light nature of the mind. The same way on a sunny day, rain clouds can sort of, out of the clear sky, so the rain clouds can kind of, what do they call, appear because of condensation and everything. And then when the sun shines on them, they evaporate and they disappear. You say, where did the cloud go? It didn't go to the east or the west. It just looks like it went back into the space. In a sense it did. The moisture no longer condensed. You know what I'm talking about? It evaporates. So a little bit similar here. Even when the thoughts are there, you apply all of these different methods and other methods also, until you can let go. Because of the calming of the mind, thoughts are not coming of their own so much, and you're not, even when they do, you don't feed them, you don't perpetuate them, you can even just focus on the consciousness that must be perceiving that thought, that's there, that allows that thought to be there. That's how one's focusing on what are the methods to focus on the mind. So the first method of looking between the thoughts presuppose this first method of restraining your attention and following the thoughts. So you're just like an observer, just watching them, not participating. Okay? Anna, good.
What about other meditation methods like contemplating mantra or just saying mantra during the meditation instead of controlling your mind or clearing your mind? Would that be a method you can get to into like a calm abiding also?
You can concentrate on different things. Like when you say mantra, that can be an object of concentration, and that can improve your concentration. But here we're not talking, like sometimes when I ask people to do meditation in India, so even like the diplomatic corps, the Westerners, and I'd ask afterwards, did you try the meditation? And they'd say, oh no, I was doing this, and it was just as though that was enough to do something with your eyes closed, instead of doing meditation. So instead of doing mantra, if we're doing Mahamudra, that's not the time to do mantra. Time to do mantra is when you're visualizing yourself as Avalokiteshvara or Tara or Manjushri or something, and then Vajrayogini, then there's a reason for saying mantra at that time. Or if there's some tantra of Prajnaparamita. This is one of the aspects of Prajnaparamita deity. It's female. I think it's female, yeah. And 4 arms. One is holding a Vajra, one is holding a Prajnaparamita text, and the 2 hands, the meditation posture here. And one says this mantra, or leaves off the tayata, even sometimes saying using that as concentration when one's mind becomes fatigued from visualizing yourself as Prajnaparamita. That's not, the mantra is never the main method of any of the tantras. It's the relaxation time. The main time is always visualizing yourself as a deity and developing some understanding of what it means that I am Prajnaparamita. How can that be? Because the logic one would use is one would think, the way up until now, this lifetime, I've conceived of myself as Anna. Do you have Chinese name also? Is it Anna also, or different?
Different.
Huh?
Different.
Secret.
That's not my Chinese name.
Different.
Oh, different. I said secret.
I have a different Chinese name.
Oh, I keep on hearing secret. Okay, what's your different Chinese name?
It's Shu Wen.
Shuin. Okay. Up till now, I thought of myself as Shuin or Anna. But through my meditation on emptiness, I've come to realize that I've always been, there's been appearance of the conventional Shuin, conventional Anna, but I've always been, because it appears immediately as inherently existent, I've been believing it to be really existent. So I'm not at all the Shuin that I've always thought myself to be. You can even eliminate that completely. I am more logically and validly Prajna Paramita, who I'm visualizing myself as, because I will eventually become Prajna Paramita. My perception, my understanding of generating myself as Prajna Paramita or Tara or whatever, is one in which I'm not conceiving it to be inherently existent. It's like a rainbow, just merely imputed as an emanation of my mind. Various reasons like this, you can develop what's called divine confidence, divine pride of being the deity. Okay? And that's the main that's the main object of concentration, the main exercise during the tantric meditation. Then when you get tired of that, you meditate, concentrate, oh man, then you say the mantra, which still accumulates merit. You still keep the general visualization and confidence of being the deity, but in a little more relaxed way, and you create this verbal karma with respect to the deity. But that's not the main part of any sadhana, although that's what people think. People think when they receive tantric initiation, oh, I have to do 100,000 mantras or 200,000 or something like that. That's for various reasons, but when you actually practice the deity, that's subsidiary. That's not the main thing. That's sort of second order importance. The main thing is visualizing yourself through understanding emptiness and developing the understanding. Yes, I am more validly Tara. I am more validly Vajrayogini. I am more validly Yamantaka than Shuin that I thought I was before. It doesn't exist at all, because my understanding of Shuin is someone who is inherently existing. That never existed. There's always been a conventionally existent Shuin, but it's very hard for us to understand how subtle, how that appears to the mind. Anyway, thank you. Incredibly good questions, incredibly inspiring to me. Thank you so much for your patience. Let's do a final dedication. It's just for, oh, my Apple Watch says 4:31, so we're not so. You have Apple Watch? Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have Apple Watch? Oh, okay.
Android says 30.
What's that?
Android
You
says
have-
30.
You have Samsung?
Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. I won't hold it against you.
Now 30.
That's the Cargu phone. So, okay. So sit comfortably, relax your body, because you've been sitting for a long time. Expel the defiled airs. Remind yourself to relax the mind, which means, in a gross level, you don't have to pay attention to those thoughts. Just like when we were talking about the Mahamudra, whatever thoughts are coming into your mind, it's very difficult to cease them at the beginning, but you don't have to entertain, to follow the various thoughts. Right now, the main goal is to be able to dedicate these merits that we've created today. So we just want to have a quiet mind. Look at the space-like nature of your mind, between the thoughts, around the thoughts, in the thoughts. Incredible potential of our mind. Clear light nature. And then to, again, do some contemplation. Think, is it true that I've created some virtuous karma today? Wow, yeah. I had, even if it wasn't so authentic, I tried to have some motivation at the beginning. to be listening and practicing today with the intention of eventually achieving enlightenment, to make realizations, to eventually achieve enlightenment, so that I can perfectly help other beings. Or my mother sentient beings who have exactly like us, who want to be free of suffering and to have happiness. And never satisfied with happiness, because the mundane happiness is never satisfying. Never get to the point where we've had enough pizza or enough Nutella or enough sex or enough love or enough money or power or anything. It's the very nature of afflicted happiness. So we definitely created some merit. I think that merit only way that can ripen upon us is something pleasurable, something positive, because karma is definite. Virtuous karma only ripens in something which is pleasurable. Negative karma only ripens in that which is unpleasurable. Other than the realms that we can be thrown into, they can also ripen in that way. So I've created this merit. It could ripen if I don't dedicate it, just like a wild horse left to its own choice may, run through the fields, go to some clover field it wants to go to, or go to some other horse or its friend or something. Only if we are riding it and we have the reins and we pull the reins in a particular direction can we make that horse go to the corral of spiritual development. So we're going to try to direct the ripening of this karma by our strong volition, our strong wish, which is the essence of dedication. May these, please, not so much asking someone else to do it, but these should, I'm dedicating these, I'm putting strong emphasis that they only ripen in the future in ways that will enhance my spiritual development. It might be next life, over many lives. Whatever these karmic seeds, may they not be finished until they act as causes of, direct and indirect causes of my achieving enlightenment. Why? Because all mother sentient beings are without a protector. I myself, if I, the son or daughter of all of these mother sentient beings, all these beings who have been my mother numberless time, and has shown me depthless kindness, if I myself do not take the responsibility to take care of them, who will? This is like the exceptional thought. I must achieve enlightenment, and for that reason, I've created these merits and am dedicating them now so that the merits always ripen in such a way that they bring about the spiritual development of myself so that I can become successively less and less a burden for other sentient beings. That I don't have to use up their energy, that I can become a resource for them and guide them, give them joy and happiness. Up until including enlightenment, when I can perfectly, spontaneously, and effortlessly lead them through the various mundane paths, the paths that lead everywhere, the various methods to lead sentient beings out of the hell realms, the animal realms, the preta realms, the god realms, the human realm, up into the bodhisattva bhumis and to enlightenment. All due to these merits that I've created today. Wow, that would be so wonderful. That's how I want these to ripen. Make a firm aspiration. May they ripen that way. But this has all been done within a mind of grasping to true existence. So we want to seal this dedication with a dedication on the emptiness of the three spheres. So we've thought of three things here: the merits we've created, the goals dedicated to, because we see sequentially greater and greater realizations with the ultimate goal of enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. And the act of dedication that we've tried to aspire, join the ripening of these karmic seeds with those goals. Three things, these three spheres. The karmic seeds that we've created today, the actions that we've created that have left imprints in our minds, that's what's called karmic seeds, why they're called seeds. Karma means action, and they leave some imprint in the mind that will eventually ripen. They themselves, as we think about them, may seem very real, findable. But like a dream, they've appeared and from this viewpoint of understanding of emptiness, ultimate truth, they don't exist at all the way that they appear. They're actually empty of inherent existence. They can still function, but they don't exist the way that they appear. The act of dedicating these merits to those goals also can't be found anywhere. It's just a name, concept, appearance to our mind, to this succession of moments. You can't find anything that is inherently dedication. It too is empty of inherent existence. And the goals dedicated to my further this lifetime realizations of future lifetimes, becoming a bodhisattva, maybe for a long period of time, helping sentient beings, becoming Buddha. None of these things inherently exist. Although they do conventionally exist, they do function, but they're empty of inherent existence. See if for a moment you can hold these three spheres equally in the sphere of emptiness, all empty of inherent existence. The karmic seeds, the dedication, and the goals dedicated to.